Please welcome Community Manager at Google Code Next Detroit, Nando Felten. Apprentice of Control Software at Intec Automated Controls, Caroline McDade. And to moderate the discussion, please welcome the co-founder, producer, and host of Daily Detroit, Staes.
All right, everybody. So it's a little different for me. I'm a podcaster. I'm used to having a table in front of me and like a big stack of paper. So I apologize if I'm a little off. Caroline, Nando, great to see you both. Let's talk a little bit about why you've chosen Michigan. Let's just start there. Let people get to know you a little bit.
So I've chosen Michigan, actually. I'm native to Southeast Michigan. I've grown up here my entire life, and I've always loved the state, but I kind of found myself, I think, as a younger child and in my teenage years, kind of taking the state for granted, not knowing what I wanted for my future and thinking, I could end up anywhere. The possibilities are limitless, but I've found myself staying in Michigan because my family is here, because the career opportunities are spectacular, and I'm very happy and content with the career that I'm pursuing right now. And I also love the nature of the state. I love the Great Lakes. I love the versatility of having a metropolitan area and the suburbs and rural areas all within tangible reach.
For sure. I mean, as anyone knows about our weather, you can travel the world in like 15 minutes around here. For you.
Yeah, I think I couldn't have summed it up any better, but essentially for me, it's a sense of community and belonging. So as a kid, I grew up here in Michigan, and I was inspired by so many things: to be a designer, to be an artist, to be a creative, and to where I'm at now in my role, being a community manager for an amazing program. Essentially, it's like a place that I wouldn't want to leave. And for me, it's a place I didn't want to leave behind as well. Essentially, going back into my community, reaching back to people that helped inspire me, but then reaching back to people that I need to bring up as well. So essentially, for me, being in Michigan is that sense of community for me. Just wanted to stay here, seeing those inspirations, and how can I build more of those?
For sure, for sure. Now, Caroline, there are a lot of misconceptions or preconceptions that people have when it comes to working around automation or automotive or anything related to that, right? Because Michigan is a place that builds things. So basically for you, how did you decide that this was going to be your thing? Because what you do now and what a lot of people do in these industries now is a lot different than what happened or people think about when they look at old pictures at the Packard plant or something like that. It's a very different industry and world now.
Certainly, and I was actually one of those people with misconceptions up until a year and a half ago. I was kind of fumbling around in my college journey, and I don't say that to talk down on myself, but just in a way that I was very insecure in where I wanted to head with my future. And I kind of felt like a very typical kind of example of, I think, the struggle that Gen Z tends to kind of go through when they're finding a career path is just this overwhelming choice and not feeling secure in where you're leading yourself. So I actually ended up hearing when I was at Macomb Community College about a program through MTech, which is their workforce and continuing education part of the campus. And it was this 3-month program to become a controls technician, is what they kind of the encompassing title for it. And I decided to go for that because I needed direction, and I needed something that would give me confidence in my ability to learn again after coming out of the pandemic, and that's exactly what the program provided for me. And then I headed to the company that I'm at, Intec, right now, and I continue to learn with them every single day, and I continue to just hold such a high amount of gratitude for the learning that I'm able to get. And as far as kind of those misconceptions in automation, I guess it depends on what misconceptions you're talking about, but I think there are misconceptions as far as that either you need to be extremely educated, or that if you don't see yourself as traditionally educated, that you can't fulfill those roles of people who are traditionally educated.
Your story makes me think about the importance of on-ramps, because you're right, like college isn't for everybody, or a 4-year program isn't for everybody. And so I think your story can really help with showing people that. And also I think it's key for employers to understand that too, to look at the individual talent and find that and do the work to kind of unearth it, right? Look more than just at like a resume site or something like that. Now, Nando, with you, you do educational work and you're also a community manager. Let's talk about first your journey to being a community manager. What called you to do that?
Yeah, so I think I backtrack a little bit. So my first year at the University of Michigan in undergrad, for the first 3 years actually, I studied mechanical engineering. And one of my dreams was the Packard Automotive plant to one day turn it into a place for, how would I call it, a new place for terminology of mobility. Like, how do I turn this place and help change the future of how transportation is looked at in Detroit? So that was always one of my goals growing up. And as also as part of my undergrad, I became published 3 times. I was a scientist doing advanced solid-state battery research, and I interned at Ford Motor Company for 2 summers. So I think my misconception is that I had all these amazing gigs, you could call it, but then I changed my major to education. And I remember my parents were like, wait, what are you doing? You want to be a teacher? And I was like, yeah, kind of, but not really. I want to be a professor one day. But for me personally, I realized that if I could do these things, then why can't anyone else do these things? And for me, I saw more of the importance of doing the work, being in front of students, finding ways to help expose students and inspire them and build the next tech leaders of tomorrow was way more empowering than for me sitting time in a research lab at Ford Motor Company, which was it was a dream come true, and I did it. But for me, I found that my space in this place of work is to be the one that actually pushes people to become whatever they want to become. And for me, it really started with representation as well. Seeing someone that looked like me. If I look in this room right now, there aren't a lot of people that look like me. And so for me, it was how do I reach the community and reach the youth and show them, hey, I can do it too. You know, sometimes we might be inspired by superheroes or comic books or video games, TV shows, or the sound of a V8 roaring down the street. But for me, really, it was all those inspirations and then wanting to give back. And I wanted to optimize my time. And I realized that when I was working in engineering, I was spending a lot of time on projects, which for me was amazing. I was helping Ford redesign a way, it's been a couple years now, so I guess I can talk about my work, but redesign the way that the batteries that we're working on are processed and to make it more optimal. And so it was amazing, but I got home and I wanted to still give back to the community, and I really didn't have the time or the capacity to do so. So now I'm here where I'm at, being a community manager, helping not just hundreds, but thousands of students in Detroit, and hopefully across the country, help inspire them to become whatever they want to become and to find those dreams and passions and to move forward in those places.
Well, I can definitely agree with the professor vibes. I think you've got that down pretty well.
Thank you.
So how important is it for the both of you, especially as people are getting into their careers, to be able to sample different things? Because you both tried different kinds of paths.
Yeah.
I think it's extremely important to kind of figure out what could be out there and what you could want. I mean, to be honest, I'm still at a point in my career where I am sampling. I'm figuring out where I want to head and what I want to do with the education that I'm currently giving myself through the job that I'm in. I mean, I want to be a programmer. I love the programming that I'm doing, but the different aspects of my career that could lead me to are so vast that I'm kind of on that journey as we speak.
Yeah, and for me, I think that's the importance of education, is being able to pick up a pencil, pick up a pen, pick up an iPad, a tablet, an Arduino, a Raspberry Pi, whatever that might be, and then see where you want to be in life, not just right now, but where do you see yourself in the future. And for me, I remember in high school, I had an amazing opportunity to be an intern at Shinola, where I was a watch designer. So I had that like kind of in my tool bag, I love Batman, so like kind of like Batman has this tool belt of really unique things. So I kind of put that in my tool belt. Okay, maybe I have a batarang right here, but now I know how to design a watch strap right here, or to create a wallet out of leather right there. And so for me, that sampling thing is really important because a lot of times students aren't exposed to a lot of stuff. I didn't work in a lab or learn how to code until I got to college. So I didn't even know that's something you could actually become. I didn't know that you can become published at 17 years old and work alongside scientists, not just in your university, but at a huge company like Ford. And so for me, being able to reach my hands and try things and test things to see them before I actually decided to make that my career is really important.
I love both these stories because I think it will help show other people what they can do, right? They need to be able to see themselves in order to succeed. And I think about my previous life, I worked around staffing, and sometimes when you hire people, it needs to evolve and kind of show you where their best fit is, not just in their lives, but also in the organization that they're working in. Because you get to know somebody for 90, 120 days, whatever, you can start to fit them a lot better into the puzzle of whatever you're doing. So we're here talking about UDrive, and I'd love to know how the two of you got involved with it. So, Caroline?
So I actually got involved in UDrive. I was contacted representative of Macomb. They had, I guess I had been recommended by through the program that I went to at Macomb, and they were looking for someone of an apprenticeship style position, someone who is still on their journey. So that's how I became a part of this campaign. But as soon as I heard about it, I got really excited to be a part of this opportunity, because it really is just showing people who they can be and what they can be. We have two different types of careers in this field that we're exemplifying right now, whereas Nando, I'm so sorry, is showing us the higher education side, whereas I'm showing something of where I kind of come from sampling. The reason that I'm in my career is because I was kind of sampling through this program, and so I'm just really excited to be here and show this generation that they can take a leap of faith and they can be a part of these careers, and it doesn't have to be something so overwhelming and so far out of reach.
Yeah, and for me, some of the work I was doing with a former scholarship I had, the Detroit Promise. So I was working with the Detroit Regional Chamber trying to figure out some ways that we could program together. And I was reached out to by someone on the team, and it kind of transcended from there. And for me, this role is really unique. It was really cool being a part of You Drive the Future and still being a part of it. And just seeing like its inception of it just being an idea, and then to then being Caroline, being brought on to help to be a part of this social media campaign. It's really cool to see students that I've engaged with like comment on our posts and comment on the channel. So I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the things I've noticed throughout my career is that the importance of following through on a mission, not just like a company mission, you know, you fill in the blank thing, whatever. You got to move past that to something that's authentic to you. And backstage, talking to both of you, it's more than work for you. It's about using that work to help people and do different things and contribute to the community. So I think for both of you, why don't we kind of walk through that? Because I think that's really crucial, that mission-driven work goes beyond just, you know, someone was joking earlier about, you know, Enron and integrity or something. People, and I don't dismiss it as just people being young. I think it's important. I've seen this change happen from X to millennial as a geriatric millennial myself. But this is something that's truly part of it, because look, we've all been through a lot of stuff in recent years that we realize that our time we need to use wisely.
Yeah. So I guess that for me, I am still, every single day, I'm kind of trying to figure out how to use my time wisely, who I want to become, what those long-term goals are for me, and I do know that that does involve community impact. However, I'm at a point in my career where I'm learning every single day. Everything that I am kind of doing is, I'm actually benefiting from the people around me. I'm learning from the generations before me that have been in this field for far longer than me, and I'm trying to kind of daily form my views on what I think and figure out how I want to impact this field, who I want to be. And right now is just, yeah, that kind of like intermediary transition phase where I'm just trying to soak up all the information I can like a sponge so that I can help people and impact people and become an important part of this.
Yeah, and for me, I feel like I'm on this continuous journey to seek knowledge and to learn. Today is actually my last day of my graduate studies at the University of Michigan. So after this, I'm going to go present on my research I did, and essentially,
yeah, give this guy a hand.
I'm not sure if I can raise or talk about some starking topics, but I'll just share with you guys really quickly about my mission and what I'm working on for my thesis in my grad school, and that's essentially around the media's perception of gun violence in Black communities. And so I saw on the news today that this is almost the first time in almost since 1950 or 60, quote me on that, since the homicide rates have been at the lowest. So for me, you know, that's amazing, and essentially doing work to find more outlets, to build more STEM playgrounds, to build more playgrounds in general for students to have an outlet for their expressiveness and not just choose violence. So for me, my mission is that continuous journey, and I plan to take that with me as long as I'm able to, you know, stand in front of a stage sit in front of a stage like this, or be in front of a place like this, and to have an impact is always continuing that mission to learn, and to learn not just with my own narrative, but how do I learn culturally? How to learn to assess myself in different demographics, learning to have empathy for teaching from people that come from different cultures and backgrounds. So my mission continues.
Yeah. You both talk a lot about learning. And I think that that's something that is lifelong. Like if you care about your career, you're always going to be learning something new because things will always happen, right? Change is going to happen with or without you. You just have to make a choice on whether you're getting on board, okay? Like my job did not exist when I graduated high school or any of that stuff. And so for both of you, when it comes to learning, what about sharing that are those goals that you're going to have throughout your life, you think, to always be picking those kind of things up?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say I think that stagnation within my knowledge is something that I would never like to see myself do. I would like to always have my perspective shift as I incur new information, whatever that information may be. If it's more information maybe about my community and the world that I'm living in and how I'm impacting everything around me, how the technology that I'm working on, maybe if it has a negative impact, I don't want it to. I want to figure out solutions, problem solving. I want to keep innovating, like keep learning so that I can keep innovating and be a part of that conversation.
Yeah, and I feel like for me, my life wasn't always a straight and arrow-driven path. And for me, I've taken a lot of non-traditional routes or approaches, especially like education, and telling my parents and grandparents, no, I'm not going to be a teacher, but I'm going to work in education and my degree's in education. So taking that non-traditional route and approach into now being in a place where I'm evolving the idea of technology and education and blending that together, I think for me is kind of answer the question. Yeah.
Earlier we talked about Michigan being a very special place and having all these different things. So what are one or two of each of yours favorite Michigan moments in your life or things that you've done recently?
I love just the access to the Great Lakes, personally. I'm a big nature kind of person, which is why I never saw myself going into technology. So I love going to Holland, and I've never been to the Tulip Festival, but I would love to be. But I love the access that we have. And then I feel so fortunate too. So I kind of live in the suburbs, but I live around some really great parks that I can go on runs through. And so even if you've been on a computer all day, and then you have 30 minutes before it gets dark, and then you're like, I'm going to use this 30 minutes to go on a 3-mile run, and the serotonin that brings is so necessary, especially in the Michigan winter. So those are my favorite parts.
Well, this time of year, that break happens at lunch, because
yeah, fair enough.
Nando?
Yeah, for me, I think there's hundreds and thousands of Michigan moments for me, but honestly, it's just we're around the holidays right now, so for me, it's always great to be around family. Spend that time with family, doing fun things, maybe going up north to a cabin or going camping. So for me, it's like Michigan has like the best of both worlds. If you go all the way to like the west side of the state, there's like sand dunes, so you can like kind of say like, hey, I'm on a sand dune right now, riding around in dune buggy. So it's pretty fun too. I've done that a couple of times. So
that's awesome.
It's fun.
That's awesome. If you were to talk to somebody else, like one of your friends, like one of the best ways to get the word out about something is by word of mouth. Sure, advertising works, all those other things, but word of mouth, it's trusted, right? So when you're going to tell to someone else, like, hey, you can do something here, you can be a part of this, you could be a part of, the automotive industry, you could be part of making whatever, because Michigan does so much. What would you say to your friend about it? What would you do to encourage them?
I like to speak from what I know, so that oftentimes comes from my personal experience, and that comes from saying, hey, let's take a look at the opportunities that you have. I found a program personally that was very niche. I didn't have much of an idea of what I was getting into until I really delved in and did the research for myself. So I would say, hey, I'm here as someone that you can talk to for support. I would say also that while paving a path for yourself and trying to figure out the opportunities that you have in your community are very important, I think confidence in yourself is also very important, which sounds like such an obvious thing, but I think we all forget it so often. I mean, there were so many times where I was going through interviews and I was kind of telling myself no before other people had the chance to tell me no, and that's something that I still work on. I don't want to do that. I don't want to see other people doing that. I want to see people with full faith in their abilities to bring the best of themselves forward that they can.
Yeah, I like how you help speak people to their truth and their power. That's very cool.
Yeah, not that I talk to my friends, like the students I work with, but for me, when I think about designing certain curriculums, I look at the inspiration. And so we're in Detroit. A lot of us think just Motor City, but essentially Detroit is a place, and Michigan is a place where so many things have been spearheaded and taken initiative to be created. One thing working with Michigan Central is being a part of New Lab as well, and just seeing that there's tons of tech startups in one place, which is like a couple miles down the street from here, and just seeing that inspiration. And for me, essentially, that's what I would tell my friends is like, I know a lot of them have left after college to go elsewhere, but staying in Michigan and having the ownership and realizing that this is like one of the coolest places to be right now.
Sure. Caroline, what's something that you thought you knew a few years ago, but now know differently?
Ooh, oh, okay, sorry. You can be a person in the workplace. I love that. It's such an important thing to me, and I think it really does kind of, I suppose, depend on your working environment, but I feel so eternally grateful that I'm in a working environment that's really supportive. I can make mistakes. I can learn from those around me. I feel comfortable having conversation with everybody that I work with. It's a very kind of family environment, and I hope that that's what people find in their careers as well, because I like coming into work and feeling comfortable laughing with my coworkers. It brings levity to the day that just working would not be the same without that. So I like that you can be a person while you work, and I think that's kind of one of the most important parts of being able to work and keep going and keep having motivation, keep your humanity.
Yeah, and for me, it's learning that these big companies, organizations, a lot of times we think about these big names and big brands, but honestly, it's the people that are within the company. And for me, that really does tend to make big things a lot smaller and make it feel like a family. And also that I didn't need a tech degree to work with Google. So that's something I learned too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty cool. So when we're back on the stage, to wrap up here, when we're back on the stage together in a few years, what do you want to be talking about?
I think for us, Caroline and I were a part of how do we call that? We're working with a few hundred students in Detroit at the Lexus Velodrome, and it was a kind of a part of their like STEM science fair day. And a lot of students had sticky notes, and they would think about ideas on what they thought mobility or transportation looked like in Detroit. And so for me, it's just how can we answer some of those questions? How can we potentially see flying cars down Woodward? How can we see more economic mobility in sense of like buses or trains or flying boats? It's kind of like this idea of the kids' inspiration and their imagination coming to life. I think that's what I want to see.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with what you're saying. I also want to see the kids that we're talking to, the people that we're interacting with in person online. I want to see them become a part of this conversation. I want to just open up the doors to everybody possible that might have a perspective that they feel is valuable. So I want to be talking about this conversation in a way that says, wow, we had so much success bringing in that younger generation with You Drive the Future. How can we replicate that? Or what did we learn from that?
You know, what I love about all of this is that to me, and it's an old proverb, but I think we all should plant seeds to grow trees whose shade we will never sit under. So I think that's important. And we gave Nando a bit of a hand, but I think we should give both of these a hand as we're out the door here. I appreciate all of you.
Thank you.